Welcome to the Level Up Artists podcast. We're your hosts, Adriana and May, and
Jackie Sanders. We're two art professionals sharing forward the advice and business lessons we have learned along our creative journeys.
We talk to artists, leaders, and art professionals to demystify the creative process and discover new ways to succeed as a career-minded artist.
If you find value in these conversations, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you'll be notified when we drop a new episode. On today's episode, we are so excited to have artist, muralist, and good friend, Mayanthi Jayawardena. So welcome, Mayanthi.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to discussing your creative journey, the importance of embracing authenticity in your art, the importance of community engagement in your process as well. But before we dive in, we want to share a little bit more about your background with our listeners who may not yet be familiar with your work.
Yes. So Mayanthi is a multidisciplinary artist and founder of Serendib Creative LLC, known for her vibrant murals, fine art, illustration, and design. Rooted in her Sri Lankan heritage and informed by over 9 years in public health, her work blends cultural storytelling and themes of healing, equity, and empowerment. Her art is both a personal and deeply communal. From authentic community engagement like collaborative murals and co-created designs, Mayanthi ensures her public art reflects and uplifts the voices it represents. Based in Durham, her murals animate businesses, public spaces, and neighborhoods across the Triangle and beyond. Each piece is a celebration of connection, culture, and collective identity.
Of course, that's the more formal introduction for our listeners. But Mayanthi, how would you describe your work to someone who has never seen it before, or maybe they're in the car right now while they're listening?
Yeah. So I think the major themes of my art across any medium is vibrant color. I live in color, and so everything I just try to make as bold as possible. My artwork is also I dive into a lot of emotional healing and authenticity. And then there's also the side of like native plants and animals. So just that element of natural beauty as well, which I think has a lot to do with my Sri Lankan heritage. So if you see a lot of colorful plants and animals, larger than life depictions of all of these themes, that's probably something to do with Serendib Creative.
Yes, I love it. And I especially love, which we'll talk about later, how you kind of use your style as that unifying element between all your projects, even though you adapt them to the different spaces you're in, whether it's an art product, a print, a mural in a parking garage or a building. It's really cool to see that consistent thread through them. Because always, yeah, so energetic and bold, which I love. But let's go ahead and start at the beginning with your creative journey. What originally drew you to this world of art and design, and how did that eventually evolve into founding Serendib Creative?
Yeah. So that is sort of a long story, but I'll try to summarize it. Like when I was a kid, I was into all things art. Thanks to my parents, I was in dance, theater, I played the flute, piano. My artwork drawings or paintings were like put up in the administration building maybe once or twice, which was so cool for me at the time. But like, so everything was art oriented back then. But then as I grew older, some of my parents' values of financial stability really stuck with me. I think as immigrants, that was something that was very important to them and became important to me, ingrained in me. And especially as their only daughter, they really, really emphasized it with me. And so I started steering away from art. I kind of fell into the um, misbeliefs that like financial stability can happen as an artist. And so I dove into other projects. I tried to find ways of that connection in other fields, and I found public health. And so I really felt connected with public health and that community connection element. And so ended up getting my master's in public health And like I said in my bio, I did that for about 9 years. But art kept coming. Like you can't just like get rid of it, right? And so throughout all of the projects that I'd be doing, regardless of the nature of the job, I would find elements of art or ways to put incorporate it into the job. But it was actually my last role that was most impactful for me. I was doing sexual violence prevention in colleges and universities, and it was very, very intense work and very important work, and I loved it. I mean, I was training like administrators, lawyers, faculty, staff from the top down, and then the students and kind of having them meet in the middle. And it was also a really tumultuous time when I was doing that. Title IX was under attack. There was a lot of government policy influences, and I was right on the front lines. And so basically, I was working all the time. It was very stressful work, and I needed an escape or I needed a way to process it. So I'd find myself coming home and painting or leaning into photography and things like that. And I started having to lean into it more and more, and I started feeling like all these symptoms of burnout, but I didn't know what it was, and I just kept pushing through. And before I knew it, like I don't know if any of y'all have experienced burnout or anything
Oh
like
yeah.
it, but like yeah, it just sneaks up on you, right? Like it just hits
Mhm.
you, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't be able to like show up for work, and because of the nature of my work, I knew if I wasn't showing up, I could be letting down a survivor. I could be letting down these students to be trained that could prevent something. Like I just felt so much pressure on myself, and so I just had to leave the job. And so I do dove more back into art because that was my safe space, just processing that. Like I didn't even know what I was doing. There was no intentionality there. It was just my safe space. I ended up again feeling the pressure of finances, and I got this amazing job as director of program development at Girls on the Run International, and it was phenomenal. But I lasted only 3 months because I still hadn't done the work to help get out of the burnout. And so that was my sign of like, okay, you can't keep going through this cycle. And so I knew I just couldn't work in general at that time. And so I left that role and started just doing art full time, healing through art full time in a way, again, unintentionally, but I just like I was in a really bad place. Which is why I talk about it so much through my art now, because I don't want other people to go through things like that. I just push myself too far. And so anyway, I started diving into these projects and photography, and the more I put it out there and the more people saw it, people started wanting to pay me for it, and people encouraged me to do more of it. And before I knew it, my healing became a source of income, and I started realizing that maybe this was an opportunity for me here because I knew I couldn't go back to that world. Not that I didn't want to, but I physically couldn't. And I just started pushing myself in this way. And I think all of that to say that's how Serendib Creative started. Serendib is a word both tied to my Sri Lankan heritage, but it's also um, a, a root of the word serendipity, and that is exactly what I feel like my artist journey, my journey in general has been. It's very serendipitous, and so every time I think of my name, the business name, I definitely am just it's a reminder of like keep going, go with the flow, whatever's coming your way, it's leading you to something really important. So I just am trusting the process, and here I
No, we
am.
love it. Definitely relate to the whole detour into the safer, in my case, corporate route, and it
Yeah.
pays well, and I liked the job, and it was challenging, and my coworkers were awesome, and like there was a lot of good stuff we were doing, a lot of good work. But then also having that call, the back of your head,
Yeah.
like, I don't think this is what we're supposed, I don't think this is what we're on this earth for, so to speak, if we can go
Hmm.
woo for a second. But definitely same, use it for a lot of healing, for a lot of different things. And then kind of have it evolve. So definitely super relatable. You've just described, how your art has helped you heal and process, of course, but can you share a specific moment where you felt like you truly stepped into your most authentic creative self? Like, light bulb went on.
Oh gosh. A specific moment, I think, for me is hard to identify. I don't remember when that moment was, but I think like through that process that I was going through of just like being like, okay, I know I want to channel what I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I know I want to do something with it. And just that space with me and the canvas or the paper or whatever, where nothing else mattered. There was no right or wrong. And I just kind of started going at it. Like, I think there is such a healing and processing power in that because, like, again, there's no wrong way to do it. And if you feel like it's not turning out the way that you want as you're processing and unloading kind of what you're feeling, you can always paint over it or start like a new part of it or tweak it in whatever way. And then at the end of your healing, processing, and like tactile work that you're doing, you have this product, you have this visual. And when you look at that visual, you know the journey that you took to get there. Um, and other people will also kind of have their own unique experience when they're looking at your piece. And I think the more I did that, it just felt like that was the most authentic that I was being with anybody in my world at the time. Because when I'd go to work, I'd have my work hat on. It'd be business, business, business. When I'd leave work, if I was in the public, I was like still had my work hat on because it was colleges and universities. Students are everywhere. And then when I was in my apartment, that was when I like locked into this artistic space. And that I think really was a big deal for me. But then like I think authenticity and like growing also came from just kind of when you're doing what you love, I find myself doing things that I never thought I would do. Like I'm conquering my fears. I'm afraid of heights and I am afraid of bugs. And when I'm painting a mural, there are regularly bugs on me, around me, flying around me as I'm balancing very dangerously on a ladder. And it doesn't phase me. Not that's not true. It phases me, but it doesn't deter me from doing the job. And I might look a little wild, like, freaking out on a ladder or something, but at the end of the day, like I'm conquering those fears. Those are not gonna get stop me from doing this job. And I think like the more I lean in and find out that the more I lean into what I love, I find that I can do anything, so to speak, if that makes sense. And so I think like that art has helped me bring out my most authentic self through that vulnerability of processing, but then also conquering my fears and putting stuff out there that I don't think I normally would have ever before. So,
Very empowering. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that actually perfectly transitions in terms of like I think both from a experience of making art standpoint, which I love the way that you've even shared so vulnerably and openly about how you've utilized your healing as kind of that beginning foundation with your art journey, but you continue to have that really strong, grounded, centered voice in your work. But as we talked about in the beginning, your work also spans so many mediums, right? So murals, illustration, design, community art. So I'm curious what creative authenticity means to you when factoring in all those different formats. Because I think, especially if people are creatures of habit, or what you were saying, where, okay, I wear this hat when I'm in this hat when I'm in this space. As an artist, sometimes we can get stuck with one medium or like this is my bread and butter and I feel very natural and collected here. But oftentimes we love doing all different things too. So what does authenticity mean across those different formats for you?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because like that artistic journey for me has clearly been like across so many mediums. And then when I started taking it more seriously professionally as an adult, I started with photography, then I went to digital illustration because I wanted to use mixed media to enhance the photography for my clients. Then went into illustration. Then from illustration, I went into painting. Painting became like textured art. Then that became murals. And there's a whole story behind all of that. But I think when it came to my creative authenticity, I have a lot of inspiration from artists that I've found on social media or met like y'all, like people who I see doing amazing things and I just really value the style of art and visually what I see and what it creates, but or the experiences that these artists create. And I think it all comes back to that that point when it's just you and the wall, or you rarely a wall for like exploration, but you and the canvas or paper, and like that forming your own style in anything, like you just really have to shut out the inspiration or like any other visuals around you and just start creating. And I think the more you do that, your style naturally comes out. And I think it is important to glean and take inspo from other people. Just like I'd be honored if people took inspiration from me. And at the end of the day, like it's critical to not obviously copy. We cannot do that, should not do that. It would never feel good as an artist either. But I just found with my own art across the mediums, I am like it's constantly evolving too. So there are the general bold colors, the flowing shapes, the things that you always see. I love painting plants and animals, but across the mediums, the styles are they are different in certain ways, but they're also evolving every day just because I'm learning, I'm changing my skill set, I am learning about different art styles. And so I think what I would just say is just like, as long as I am always practicing that, like me and the canvas style, that brings out that authenticity in me, what calls to me and what calls how I feel I can best depict my experiences or whatever message I'm trying to get out. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And actually, I mean, a lot of artists do struggle with authenticity, of course, especially if they're trying to sell or, if they feel like they have to perform for social media or things like that. But from your end, I mean, you mentioned practicing, continuing to evolve. How do you intentionally, you know, evolve your practice, your professional practice, while still being true to your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think centering around my why I am doing this, why I'm doing this full time, um, is what creates this natural drive in me, this sort of not never satisfied, but always hungry, always eager to learn more, see how I can amplify things, what I can do differently, how I can make more of an impact. And I mean, there's just so much out there too, and there's no one way to do anything. And so I think the more I see, the more people I connect with, the more I put my art out there, there's just so many different ways for me to grow and amplify. And so just kind of being open to those things and not get stuck in comfort. I don't think any part of this journey, because I have no formal background in running a business or art really. And so it's been this kind of adventure of like, okay, let's do this. I'm going to figure it out as I go. Does this mean something to me? And if it doesn't feel right, feeling comfortable enough to walk away, especially like which I know is hard as artists. We all need to pay our bills too, right? So we can't just say no to the things we don't want to do. But finding that balance of like, why is this important to me? If I don't want to do this particular thing, even if it makes me money, how can I lean in to make this other avenue work well and still be lucrative for me? And I think that's the beauty of having multiple forms of income as well. Murals are such a big foundation of my business, but then when I have children's books that I'm working on too, that creates consistent payments for me and another creative outlet. And then when you think of gallery work, you put so much time into something and you never know when it'll sell. But then when it does, it's just that blessing that comes in. But there's just like so many different ways that I think as creatives we can keep challenging ourselves. And yeah, I think without rambling a little too much anymore, it's just really, it's really about the why for me. I don't think I'll ever be satisfied until I've really honed in on that way that I can make the most impact. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, and I love how you really talked about, yeah, like always staying centered with kind of not getting distracted by the paycheck, even though it can be nice, or, oh, this
Mhm.
is a great exposure opportunity, or everyone else says I should be doing this, is really staying grounded in, okay, but how do I feel about this project? Is it aligned with my values? Is it something that I get excited about? Because I think from learning experience, I mean, entrepreneurs in general, but even just as humans, we have all had those moments where we move forward with a decision or an opportunity. We're like, I don't think this is actually what I want. And like,
Yeah,
it's okay to admit that after you've done it too, to
right.
like, I'm gonna follow through with my commitment, but this just doesn't sit well with me for whatever reason. So I love that idea of not looking outward, but really staying grounded. Um,
Yeah.
which I know a big part for you too is community engagement. So
Mhm.
utilizing your art and your business to connect out in the community. So how do you often approach community engagement in your public art projects from kind of like idea to execution? What factors do you bring in?
Yeah. So I think that that process is really important to me, and it kind of ties my public health background into
Mm.
art, and I love how it's influenced me. But I think
Which,
the
real quick, sorry not to cut you
yeah,
off, but when you mention public health, do you mind giving like a little brief, I guess, explanation of like what that looks like if some of our listeners are not aware? Is it like physical health, mental health,
yeah.
food
So
scarcity? What? Yeah.
yeah, public health is more of like the general community-based approach to health. So like it's not individually based, it's more about communities and changing populations.
Okay.
So public health can range from vaccinations, mental health, things like that, to some of the roles that I had when I was in public health was I was doing substance use prevention. I was doing campaigns in communities about prescription medication abuse and helping people understand it and prevent it, working with students and health facilities, et cetera, police, all the things. And then it's also like youth development and encouraging young people, empowering them to make a difference in their communities. That's public health. And then sexual violence prevention. So prevention is a big part of public health. And
Mm.
but that community engagement, basically, how do you make large scale sustainable change on the health of a person, on the health of a community? In incorporating practices that, last a long time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And so then I love that obviously having that background and that education and in the quote unquote non-art world, then yeah, how do you bring community engagement and mesh that with your public art projects?
Yeah, so like for example, if I'm starting a mural with a new client, the first step is learn everything about them. So similar to the public health approach, if I'm going to go to a community and I want to do anything, any type of programming, if I just go in with my idea, it's not going to translate to them. There probably isn't going to, it's not going to be as effective, right? They might not even
Mhm.
show up. So learning and understanding is always step one. And I've done that in a variety of ways. Some organizations that hire me already have that part incorporated, but when they don't, it's been, talking to the teams, talking to the staff, asking them what their why is. Why do you want this artwork? Um, what are the do you have any visuals in mind? What are the themes you're looking for? Um, and just learning about their organization in general, and sometimes just the specific people that hired me because they are most passionate about it. And so they're going to give me the most insight. And so I gather all of this information. And oh yeah, and then I also like if it's a community organization, I have done well, me and the organization that hired me have done like surveys or like online things where people can share their favorite memories of that community or their favorite places. And we try to find as many accessible ways to get that information from them. I might show up to different community events and just kind of canvas there or have a table there and have people come and talk to me, or I just approach them. But just basically like learning about as much as I can. And then I gather all that information. And that leads into step two, which is my job as an artist is to turn all of that into the visualization. So I will tend to do like three different drafts of my interpretations of everything I learned, and then I share with the client. And, obviously not all clients are like this, but most often if it is a community-based thing, clients will again, like find either online distribute or print out and have people vote. I'll go to events and have people vote or just pick their favorite one. There's been things like where the artwork, which was so nerve-wracking, but really cool to see, is that it was at like a public forum and I wasn't in attendance. I saw the recording after, but like where they all like looked at the different drafts and kind of picked which ones they liked and why they liked it and what the elements they wanted changed. Um, but like anyway, just having that engagement in there, and then they pick the draft that they like. We make the tweaks that are needed that
Mhm.
would make it as authentic to that community or organization as possible. And then when it comes to like the actual community engagement, and my favorite part of all of it is the installation of the artwork. My goal is always to have the community members or the staff paint part of it with me. So in the
Yes.
designs, well, even before we start the design process, I ask them if they want a community engagement component, if they want the team to be a part of it. So then when I'm designing, I make sure that there are elements that are accessible to anybody, that are paintable, aren't too intricate for someone who doesn't have a professional background or experience painting. Um, and then I do like a community paint day. It might be a couple hours, and people will come, whether it's again the staff or community members of any age, and I'll help them paint as part of it. And I feel like that has, murals have like this external beautification process, and it's really important. People will see their stories, their community, whatever branding or anything is going up. But internally, anybody who actually had a hand in painting that mural, like the investment they're going to feel in that community, in that space, or if you're someone who works at this organization and you walk in every day and you see that large, bright, vibrant mural and you were part of that, like that's going to make a difference in how you enter work or enter that space. And I think it's just taken my mural experience from when I've started to now to a whole other level. It's so meaningful. And those community paint days are just my favorite. And even if they say they don't want a community paint day, sometimes I'll just be like, if I see anybody lingering while I'm painting, I'll be like, hey, come on over here. Just,
Yeah.
throw a stroke on there. Just throw some paint down. And they're often really excited about it. So
Yeah. You gotta love the ones that they're like, but I don't paint. And you're like, your
right,
brush has paint and it's on the wall. You
you
are
did
painting.
it. You
Um,
did it.
because they're like, I don't paint while they're painting. It's always funny. No, I love that. I love doing that too with community projects. Have that
Yeah.
ability to, I mean, sometimes it's just adults, but sometimes they're geared towards the little ones too, or a
Yeah.
mix. And having the ability to tell someone, that's just like staring, like, ooh, ah, like, come on over, like,
Exactly.
come give this a try. Or I love it when they'll have the little ones paint, but then the parents are like, I'm like, no, you too. Like they're painting, you're painting. Like they're like, no, this is for the kids. I'm like, this is kids and adults. Come on.
Right. And
Put
then
down
they
the
get
phone,
lost in it,
grab a
right?
brush. Let's go. Let your kiddos see you paint with them. Like, and
Right.
do you want me to take the photo while you're at it? Because I'm happy to. Like, I
Yes.
don't know,
Yeah.
save that memory too.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, it's very cute, but it's also meaningful, and also it definitely acts as a bridge, right, between the community, between the art. I mean, of course, there can be healing involved, but I love how these kind of interactions, kind of like what you've been mentioning, it increases people's sense of ownership over the space, over the wall, their sense of identity, right? Like I was here, kind of situation. And especially if they had some input on the design too, then there's even more of that. But you've mentioned a little bit more of this, but I want to dive into it a little bit more. Is how does this mission, to act as a bridge, right, through these community projects, how does it take shape on your work? How does it look like in practice? I know you mentioned, of course, having people come in, but how do you intentionally weave that in, if you will, maybe into proposals and things like that? And secondary, and you can kind of tie these together as you wish, is what do you think is by doing these projects, how do you think you're filling in, potentially a gap in how artists and communities connect, and how can we all do better, when it comes to this?
Yeah, I really love that question. I think I've been seeing, prior to diving into this full time, like I didn't understand the gap between that. And I also didn't fully understand the impact of art on bridging that gap. I think that having people come together to create designs to tell the story of their organization, to then see it visualized and to paint together can be really bonding for people, can really empower people in their work again, reinvigorate their passion for the work that they're doing because seeing it depicted in a different visual. And so I think like that is a big part of it. Um, I think that as a part of step one that I was mentioning earlier in like my whole process of starting, I always make sure I really do ask all of my clients if it, makes sense for the actual project, if they want a community engagement event. And if we establish that from the get-go, then I can tailor everything else to that. And then it gives them that opportunity. And most people aren't thinking about it. And so when I talk to them about it, I basically make it clear, like, this is what I'll do. You don't have to do anything, but just get people to show up or let me know what I can and cannot do. And I'll take it from there. And it I think it just creates this opportunity that they never expected, this enhancement in that process that they won't forget. Um, but then I think there's also an impact on the people that weren't a part of the process. When they see the actual artwork, it's going to hit differently than just a logo or um, something that, maybe if I hadn't talked to anybody and they just hired me and I created something based on what I knew at the time, it might not speak to those specific visuals of the people. So I think that bridges a gap between the organization and the community members that might be more likely to participate with that organization. They might see themselves in that wall and associate that positively with that organization. Um, so I think there's a lot of ways. I think that to get to your second part of the question, I think that there's so much that artists can learn from communities that I don't think we do enough, like intentionally. Not we, because I know that y'all, the two of y'all, are so intentional with this process, and I love it, and I learn so much from y'all. But I think in general, like as artists, we can get so caught up in like the artwork that we're creating that we get frustrated with all the other voices coming at us about like, oh, you should change this and you should do that. So kind of trying to help create processes and systems that support artist creativity and ownership while also enhancing and emphasizing the importance of the community that's being served in this particular project. Um, I have started kind of informally doing this kind of like public art consultancy thing where like I'm trying to let people know that, hey, if you are a community organization that wants to incorporate public art, whether that's like a community paint day, live painting at an event, or something like that, let me help you make that as smooth as possible. So in that sense, I am advocating for the artists. I'm making sure that the organization is paying the artists well, is considering everything that the artist needs, is not making the artist jump through hoops and have a really stressful time trying to do this. And then simultaneously, I'm making sure that my goal is to make sure that the artist is being as intentional with the organization as possible too, that both of the goals are being met. And then I also offer that to artists. Maybe an artist is like, I really want to I want to do more live painting, or I want to do this event, but I don't know where to get started. Or I got asked to do this live painting event and I've never done it before. What should I consider to make it the most impactful and meaningful? And so just being there to provide that support and help people help create that system change, but that like community, that sustainable change from the public health approach of just like, okay, how can I as an individual and as an artist bridge that gap? So, because I think there's so many ways that we can always do better, and it's important for us as the creators to understand the language, the meaning, the why behind the people that we're creating this for. And then like it just goes miles from there, right? Like the impact is always worth it. And if I can help more people achieve that from both ends, that's what I want to do.
That's the goal.
hmm
Perfect.
There's so much that you just said that I absolutely love. And I'm so excited that you'll be kind of continuing that consulting and being involved with community engagement projects because I think you're so right. I think it creates such a powerful experience for all people involved. And you are such a wonderful bridge of that, as we were talking about before recording, like that translation of okay, the admin, corporate, nonprofit world and understanding the limitations and excitements and ideas of an artist.
Yeah,
Where oftentimes like we need a translator or like
yeah.
some people are better at translating than others
Hmm.
where I love how you also pitch community engagement up front because oftentimes a business might not even know that. They
Right.
may feel like they can't ask you to do that. They don't think it's a benefit to you. Or they think, okay, this is going to provide more hurdles when actually it probably makes certain elements of the design or the process easier, right?
Exactly.
Like, especially given a specific scale of a mural, you're like, okay, certain color blocks, like, yes, the artistic hand is very important, but there's certain parts where, yeah, paint this circle yellow. It's already sketched out. Anyone can
Exactly.
paint that yellow, you know? Um,
Exactly.
and again, it gives that ownership to the project and it just enhances it on so many levels. So,
Yeah.
I love so much of what you've said. And I think it is really that bridge that is so important in our community. So I'm curious, thinking about all these like abstract ideas, and we know a little bit about your background and different projects you've done in the Triangle and beyond, but can you share a recent project or collaboration that you feel like really exemplifies this power of creative community building or community engagement and what your takeaways from that experience were?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So recently, so earlier this year, I wrapped up project, this semester-long project with Southern High School in Durham.
Mm.
So the city of Durham got a South Arts grant, and they hired me as an artist to basically it's a multifaceted project. So I created a bus shelter artwork at Holton Career Center in Durham, and there was a lot of community engagement in that. I um canvassed the bus stops and Holton Career Center and asked people what themes they wanted and what they felt was important to them. Let me say before this, the whole project was a litter-free campaign. That's what the grant was for. And so I talked to people at the bus stop and at the career center about what they felt like that meant in the city of Durham. And then I created designs and I went to events and had people vote on them or I like held up the designs at the bus stop and had them vote on them. And then we created the designs and installed them. But my favorite part of that project was working with the high schoolers at Southern High School. And basically, I was able to go in and over a semester walk them through every step of a mural creation. So we started with talking about the why. And it was three art classes that I worked with, and their art teachers were amazing. Like if I had them as art teachers, I don't know where I would be as an artist. So I worked with these three art classes, and we would talk about why a litter-free school or community is important. They would first talk about it, then they started doodling together, and they would do it in groups and individually, and then kind of talk about which themes were most relevant. And then from there, I took those designs and did the same normal process of like, how can I create this into two different visuals that they can vote on that best depicts the themes that they came up with and the visuals. And I'm so happy they voted on the one they did because I basically created a centerpiece that was generalization of all the priorities that they identified. But then I actually took their real doodles that they submitted and I put it on the sides of the, because we had a huge wall to work with. And so I incorporated their actual doodles onto the sides of the mural and had those individual artists actually get to paint their doodles on there. And so that was really fun for them. But then like once we created the design, they went through every step of like how do you take a design from paper, put it up on the wall? What paints do you use? What takes techniques do you use? And then they got to sign it. And I think for me, it was so cool to see their investment in that, the teachers' investments, the amount of teachers and other people that came up and talked about it, the city's engagement in that. Um, but I also know that, these students, when they come for their reunion, they're going to remember this. They started their legacy at this school, and that will be up there as long as it'll be up there. But they now have this seed planted of public art. And like from the beginning, there were certainly some students that did not seem engaged at all. But by the end of the project, they were the ones coming up to me when they knew it was the last day, and they were just asking me millions of questions. They did not want me to leave. And I just knew that we were impactful in that. And some of it was regarding the theme of the mural, but some of it was also like, oh, you can be a successful artist. Art can be success, like this is a career, and you can be really happy and successful and living a good life in this career. And so I think it just created the ripples of change there, both on the school, at Holton Career Center. There was so much there. And one thing I wanted to say about the Holden Career Center too, the bus shelters there, I really want to applaud Stephanie Miner and the team that worked with me hired me for this, but it was such an intentional process even in the installation because we made sure that the transparency was low so that you could see through, so that people would feel safe at the bus shelters. A lot of art is printed where you can't see past it. And so we wanted to think about people at night who are at the bus stop and safety might be a concern. And so we made it was hard for me to see the vibrancy of the artwork dimmed a little through the transparency, but at the end of the day, the goal was safety and making a community better. So I think there was just so much back and forth between me and the organization, me and the school, me and the participants. And I feel so fulfilled after that project, but I think that like I know in my heart that there's some long-lasting effects from that, and that was because of the openness that I had, I think, to all of these different opinions coming my way about the artwork and being able to adapt and change it to meet their needs versus mine. But also being strong enough in my artistry to guide them and help them and show them like this is the best way to do it as an artist and find that like celebration of both worlds in there. So yeah.
Being a bridge, I mean, it's a recurring theme for sure. No, I love that. And I love what you explained about the students. Definitely can relate to talking to them and saying like their eyes light up when you
Yeah.
ask them like, so has anybody told you you'd be a starving artist? Have you tried it? And they're like, yes, yes. And
No.
it's like, so let me tell you a thing or two about murals or
Right.
graphic design or, just kind of like trying to open their eyes a little bit more to the possibilities and being like, it
Exactly.
makes sense why parental units might be saying some of these things. Some of it is things that they heard as well or that they learned as well.
Right.
And, there are easier jobs, you can probably get a steadier income at a 9 to 5
Right.
than you can with art. But I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, if you're gonna pick a job, like just pick something you love and then you'll figure the rest out and obviously
Exactly.
like ask other people and get mentorship and things like that. Don't just try to like bunk your head against the wall because that's
Exactly.
not helpful either. But like that idea of like help each other out,
Yeah.
collaborate. Some of them are like, I'm an artist, but I only draw by myself. And it's like, well, you're painting next to somebody that you might not even like.
Right.
So let's move on with it. And they're gonna pass you the brush. Like the drama of high school, but it's also like so good. And at work too, even in corporate environments, there can be a little bit of that, like, oh, but I want to like stand next to so and so. Well, you got a signed yellow, and so did they.
Right.
So you two are going to be paired up. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like psychology built in,
Yeah.
into what we do with art, especially when we're interacting with the public, as opposed to just like, I made my design and I painted it and that's it, which sometimes that is what we do, right? Like, how
Yeah.
much interaction or how much, public painting can take place if you're up on a lift? That's going to
Right.
be zero.
Right.
But maybe they can help with some of the design ideas, some of the themes. So I love how you're balancing those things out. And honestly, I feel like we can keep talking forever, but there might have to be a part two at some point. But what we do want to do, Mayanthi, is like we love to ask all our guests at the podcast how they define success. But let's take a quick break so we can put in a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by our Level Up Artist resources.
We understand that life as a modern artist can be both exciting and overwhelming. Plus, there's a lot of information out there, but what do visual artists actually need?
We've spent countless hours of trial and error, weeding through tons of information to find the gold so that you don't have to waste time going down those endless rabbit holes.
We created a library of PDF resources with bonus videos that cover everything from artist documents to exhibition prep, social media to technology, sales strategies, and artist mindset, several templates, and more.
Ready to get started? Head on over to levelupartists.com/shop to level up your creative career today.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Mayanthi, how do you define success as an artist?
So I think for me, it's more about the depth of connection. Am I making an impact on the people who are looking at my art or experiencing my art? I think that in a world where social media is such a big deal and likes and views and engagement, followers, all of that is put as like a high priority to many. I think I really struggle with that. I feel like I don't get a lot of engagement. And sometimes I feel defeated by that, but I think success and the reason I keep going, the reason that I love what I do and I know I'm on the right path is when I do make those connections when people, it could be a DM or it could be someone tagging me in a picture of the mural that they saw, or it could be the emails or people engaging with my artwork. But knowing that, I think if you as an artist are creating something that someone looks at and they're able to see, it's able to change their perspective about something, I think that that is success. Especially the themes that I try to talk about, like mental health, women's empowerment, you know, immigrant life struggles, celebration, culture, all that stuff. Like, I think if I can create artwork that has someone look at it and experience that differently and think twice about maybe some important topic, that there's success right there. And that's what I want to be doing. And those connections we talked about basically the whole podcast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love how you put that, and definitely the idea of it's not just necessarily, how am I doing financially, which of course is important so we can continue the work.
Right.
But I love that yours goes a little bit deeper than that, and it goes into, who we're representing, who we're serving, and how can we translate maybe some of those stories and your own into something that then, well, survives past us, essentially. So
Yes,
it's awesome.
exactly.
Love it. Love it.
So good. Now, thinking back to the beginning of your journey, what is one piece of advice you wish you had heard before you got started on this creative journey?
I would say show up and ask questions.
Mm.
I There's two reasons for me saying that. One, I'm an incredibly intense introvert. I get drained by the slightest contact with anybody. And I get social anxiety. So it's really hard for me to show up. And it's wild because in my previous roles, I was training hundreds of people. I was in these really intense rooms. I was doing really intense work. But when it comes to me running my own business, which I am extremely passionate about, it's still very hard for me to show up. But what I have found every single time I show up to an event or learning opportunity or whatever, I always gain something so enriching that is pivotal to what I do next. And so show up, go to the events. Don't let imposter syndrome or whatever might be, or anxiety stop you from going, because you will make connections
Mhm.
in person that are so important and can change everything for you. Or you can just be reinvigorated. You just never know what you'll find by showing up to the situation, applying for the job. Just like show up in whatever capacity that means. Even if it's you showing up into the studio, you're nervous to start painting again or whatever, or trying this new thing, just show up and do it. And remember that art doesn't have there's not one way you can do anything. And I love that about art. It applies to so many things in life, but like with art, you don't have to do it one way. And I feel a lot of freedom in that because I don't have formal training in it. So I know I'm doing some things wrong, but I think the ways that I do it and by showing up and challenging myself and figuring things out myself, I think I'm creating new pathways for myself, which goes
Mhm.
back to authenticity, but like um show up and just do the work. So show up, show up, show up, and then ask the questions. I am where I am now because I asked so many people through DMs or at events or wherever. Like I've walked up to muralists as they're painting and just chatted with them, and then that led to a spray painting lesson. And now I know how to spray paint, and I spray paint some of my murals. But like, just ask the questions because in the art world, I have not received anyone who's trying to gatekeep information. Most people are like, "Here's everything I know. Here's all that I've gathered over the years. Take it. Good luck. Have fun with it. Let me know if you have any questions." And it's so
Yeah.
wild, but like all the information is right there and from the people that you might already follow or admire or whatever. So if you show up, you're going to get access to all of that. But even if you don't show up and you DM someone, just do it or email someone or whatever. Just ask the questions.
Mhm.
It goes such a long way, and you don't have to spend so much time figuring out something that you don't know or you might not even know where to start with. Will help. I will help. Like, reach out to me. If I don't know, I'll help you find someone who does know. Um, yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah,
Love
it's
it.
definitely very enriching the way that the artistic community can come
Yeah,
together and be supportive. And you haven't found them, but if somebody's listening and they're like, I have met the gatekeepers, keep asking, because
yeah,
most of us are going to be like, what kind of paint do you need? What kind of question do you have? Oh, you want to know about sheens? You want to know about brands? You want to know where to buy it?
exactly.
Where the discount is, what
Yeah.
to get used, what not to get used. We will tell you all the things, you
Yes, we
just
get
like,
excited about it.
yeah, yeah. It's like, Jackie and I always are saying it on the podcast, community over competition, a hundred
Yes.
percent. Like we all get better, and even our industry can actually evolve and for
Yeah.
the better if we're sharing information with each other. Like, wait, they paid
Agree.
you how much? Next time, get a higher price.
Yeah.
Or the client did what, sometimes it's not them, sometimes it's us. Like, we did what? Oh, wait, you weren't supposed to use that primer for that wall. Like, it's, but it's like nice. Like, if we keep it as open channels of communication, I mean, it makes us all, what is it, rising tides, all that kind of good
Hmm.
stuff. So, for sure. Now, Mayanthi, if somebody randomly handed you $100, what would you splurge on or invest in? It has to be something that brings you joy and relates to your art or business.
Okay, okay, okay. So I would say something I've been thinking about recently, and it's very random, but and I don't even know if this is possible because I've never looked at it, but I would invest in a sewing machine. You can buy those for less than 100, right?
Yes.
Um, I have always thought about what it would look like to embroider. So maybe not a sewing machine,
Mm.
but something, yeah, what I how like I would want to embroider my style of artwork onto clothing, specifically the florals, etc. But like I would want to explore my style in that way, or like on hats. Um,
Yeah.
just something because I just feel like there's a missed there's something that I'm missing. I already,
Mhm.
I do athleisure. I have like clothing that I sell and everything in merch, but that embroidery part of
Mm-hmm.
it, where I can incorporate like golds and vibrant colors and everything, and
Yeah.
shapes, and just kind of free flowing in whatever way I want. I would love that. I would totally get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally see your style doing that. And I feel like it also brings in that extra, like, deeper element of like the craft of quilting or embroidery in terms
Yeah.
of like the human experience. There's something just very inherently like community based about like this
Yeah.
clothing that was specifically crafted for a person.
Yes.
It's like a different feeling than like a print on fabric, you know?
Oh, yeah,
Tactile experience. Oh, I love it.
yeah.
Well, let us know when that is coming because
Yes. Oh
we're
my
so
gosh.
excited to see it.
So much to learn in between then, but
So
I
much to learn. But real quick before we let you get going with the rest of your day, do you have any upcoming projects that listeners should know about?
So I am wrapping up three murals right now. I'm finishing a really amazing one at UCAN, a farm in Durham. And there will be a video coming out about it soon. We're in the process of filming it. I'm so excited. So stay tuned for that. Um, and then the other projects are just in the works, and social media will tell you all about that. I think upcoming, Jackie and I were talking earlier about just it's kind of this interesting slowdown period. So murals are my primary form of income, but I do children's book illustrations, and I sell merch, I create merch, and I do all these other things. And so this is my opportunity. What I'm doing right now is really honing in on that, and really honing in on that art consultancy aspect that I talked about earlier. So I have some really exciting things launching in February. So um,
Ooh.
I'm going to be keeping my head down and working on things. You'll see some art drops and merch drops and things like that coming out. But sign up for my newsletter. You can stay tuned with all these things. And yeah, just so much creation and business leveling up is what I have coming up. And I'm excited about it.
Oh, I love that. So, for our listeners, how can they stay in contact with you? How can they sign up for your newsletter? What's your social media? All the things.
Yeah, so social media on Instagram is Serendib Creative, Serendib Creative. And then my website is www.serendibcreative.com. And on my website, you can sign up for the newsletter, or you can get that link through social media as well, through Instagram. So I will keep you posted. And yeah, I cannot wait to share all
I'm
these
looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and link those in the show notes for those of you that might be listening. It'll be there with podcast information. So thank you so much, Mayanthi, for being on the podcast today. We've absolutely loved having you.
Thank you. It's same. We really could talk forever about these things. They're
I know, I know.
amazing.
I'm like, we try to limit it, but I'm like, I feel like we could have a 4-hour episode
Yeah.
with you. So, maybe at some other time we'll keep discussing. In the meantime, for our listeners, if you want to stay connected with us between episodes, share your feedback, or have a question you would like for us to answer on the podcast, you can reach us through social media. I'm at ameighart across all platforms.
And I'm at jsandersstudio on all platforms. And if you want to follow the podcast, we are at levelupartists on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you in the next episode.